Design Thinking Leadership Message. Education has not been a successful enterprise as of late. Currently, the United States is almost last in the race for academic standing worldwide, and businesses and colleges often report that high school and college graduates are not prepared with 21st century skills. Tony Wagner calls for students to learn the 7 survival skills. These skills are critical thinking, adaptability, initiative, effective communication skills, the ability to analyze information, and having imagination. But how can we as leaders teach students these skills? Where do we begin? At the beginning of our design thinking journey, we watched the video Should We Change the Way We Teach?, where a man goes by the name of Prince EA talks about how he sued the school system for a lack of progression. He says that the world has progressed, but education has not, and that if we can customize healthcare, cars, and Facebook pages, then it is our duty to do the same for education. According to Andrea Scheer and her associates in the article Design Thinking and Education, design thinking is a promising avenue to pursue because it provides a structure during the difficulties of a project while meeting the various criteria of 21st century learning. Design thinking, or DT as it is often referred to as, can be used as a powerful tool for learning and change. Design thinking, according to Jessica Leahy in the article How Design Thinking Became a Buzzword at School, talks about how DT in education starts with finding empathy, moving aside the ego of the teacher or leader, and supporting students in their journey of failing and learning. Benna Kalik and Allison Zamuda, the authors of Students at the Center, Personalized Learning with Habits of Mind, mention design thinking as being a part of a vision of a future state for many schools because of its ability to focus on the process rather than the end result. P21 is a framework that was developed with input from teachers, education experts, and business leaders. P21 describes the skills, knowledge, and expertise that students must master to succeed and work in life. It is a blend of content knowledge, specific skills, expertise, and literacies. One of the goals of the P21 framework is to promote learning and innovative skills through the 4 C's and technology. Throughout our course, we have incorporated the 4 C's and technology into every assignment that we have done. The 4 C's and technology often go hand in hand with one another. With technology, it is important to educate students to be digital citizens, so that they are not what authors Mike Ribble and Gerald Bailey in the article Teaching Digital Citizenship call poor technology role models. The first C, critical thinking, is one that Tony Wagner mentions as being one of the 7 survival skills needed for success. In the critical thinking slides located in Module 2, it mentions that a critical thinker uses broad, in-depth analysis of evidence to make decisions and communicate his or her beliefs clearly and accurately. Creativity, the second C, is another skill that is necessary and one that students lack. In the slides located in Module 4, there is information about what creativity is and how we can address it. We as educators must teach the skills and attitudes of creativity. Those skills are brainstorming, giving and receiving feedback, reflecting, risk-taking, and questioning. More than ever, incorporating creativity into everything that you do is easy. Shrum and Levin in Leading 21st Century Schools talk about how we now live in the age of 2.0 web tools where you have hundreds of choices to choose how you want to show information or express your findings on a particular subject. The third C, which is collaboration, has evolved with our rapidly developing technological advances. Students have the ability to communicate through a variety of mediums to people locally and from all over the world. In Module 5, the collaboration slides talk about how students can create virtual teams. They have the ability to understand their own strengths and the strengths of others on the team and leverage it for best outcomes, which ultimately can build trust electronically. The fourth C, communication, is another one of Tony Wagner's 7 survival skills. According to Eric Sheninger in the article Transforming Your School with Digital Communication, there are several reasons why students and educational leaders should communicate digitally. You can become transparent, flexible, expand the access for learning, and you have the ability to share the powerful stories about the process of student learning. 21st century skills demand that it is necessary to use technology and the four C's together to work and live. It is our job to ensure that the two work together to move education forward. To demonstrate why design thinking is a useful and necessary tool to support the P21 framework, I would like to explain the process that I went through with my group using design thinking. There are 5 phases of design thinking: discovery, interpretation, ideation, experimentation, and evolution. To begin, I was placed in a group with my classmates that had the same interest in developing a positive school culture. The purpose of the discovery phase is to find the mission, prepare research, and gather inspiration. All 3 phases of discovery required us to demonstrate the first of the 4 C's, which is critical thinking. We identified the problem that we saw at our sites by telling our stories. The problem ended up being that we all saw a disjointed, negative school culture. We asked a lot of questions about the problem that we had identified. Since we had all heard of restorative justice, we decided it could be a way to promote a positive school culture. Something that also came out of our questions and stories was that we were all interested in using technology to promote restorative justice. As a group, it was decided that the main end users would be teachers and students. It was then that we created our initial design thinking question. It started off as, how can we, as a school, use restorative justice with technology to develop a strong and supportive culture that leads students with positivity and reinforcement? That question would adjust as we went through the phases of design thinking. Phase 2 of discovery was when we identified who our experts were, who ended up being Dr. Fry, Dr. Fisher, and Dominique Smith, based on the book that they wrote, Better Than Carrots or Sticks. We identified what sources we might use to find information regarding best practices for restorative justice, and some questions for those expert resources. We created questions to ask end users to get a better understanding of what they wish to see happen to create a more positive school culture. Phase 3 of discovery was all about gathering information and data. Each of us was responsible for interviewing an end user, expert, or doing research from scholarly articles and books. These sources proved to be valuable to help our group move forward to the next 4 phases of design thinking. The next phase, interpretation phase, required our group to understand the data that we collected from the discovery phase. Critical thinking was required for us to complete the interpretation phase. Using the Web 2.0 tool Storybird, we created a deliverable that told each of our stories, the common themes in our research, and emerging ideas on how to proceed using restorative justice. Once we interpreted the results, we were able to frame opportunities to prepare for the ideation phase. The purpose of the ideation phase, the 3rd phase, is to generate and refine ideas based on what is discovered and interpreted. Out of the 4 C's, creativity was used the most during this phase. Using the Web 2.0 tool Padlet, we came up with 100 ideas that had a focus of using technology to implement restorative justice. From there, we narrowed our ideas to our 4 favorites and discussed the constraints of each idea. Based on a collaborative discussion, we chose 2 ideas that were most likely to be successful, easiest to implement, had the least amount of risk involved, and the greatest benefit to the end users. The 4th phase is experimentation. This phase required our group to collaborate with each other and outside groups to create a prototype. There are 2 phases to experimentation. The first being to create a prototype, and the second is to receive feedback from end users about the prototype. Based on the information gathered in the previous phases, we created a prototype using Google Slides that could be used to introduce restorative practices that use technology to schools that have a limited experience with restorative justice. That prototype incorporated all parts of our design thinking to show the process of the decisions that we had made. We then asked for feedback from 2 different end users so that we could adjust the prototype to better fit their needs. The final phase of design thinking requires the designers to evaluate what was learned and build off of what feedback was given. The last of the 4 C's, communication, was used for this phase to determine the course of action we would follow after revising the prototype. Each of us was able to present the revised prototype to an outside audience member to get additional feedback. That feedback was used to further enhance the prototype so that end users may proceed with the project. Design thinking is collaborative, requires teamwork and constant critiquing. It creates a space to try something new and gives you permission to fail and learn from your mistakes. Design thinking is optimistic because it is based on the fundamental belief that we all can create change. It is the tool that we can use to answer the global achievement gap and create lifelong learners that are productive members of a global society. Thank you for your time.